But first, now last year, Australians said no to the voice. 60% of us voted against this, dividing us by race. And now South Australia has confirmed devastatingly that this kind of race politics is not wanted or valued even by Aborigines themselves. It's a plaything of the woke white. A year ago, South Australia's Labor government decided it wanted its own version of the voice, a kind of advisory parliament just for Aborigines. Now, the vote for this in Parliament to set it up saw the white left line the streets in support. But last week, it was time for Aborigines themselves to vote for their representatives on this state voice. And boy, was that a very different story. Fewer than 9% of the state's estimated 30,000 Aborigines of voting age bothered to vote. And so those who did get elected as supposed representatives of their people included Eddie Newchurch, who got just 11 votes, Denise Wanganeen, who got even fewer, just 6, and Kayleen O'Loughlin with 10. Now, I've got to say that someone with just 6 votes, presumably her own and 5 others, now represents Aborigines. That's a joke, isn't it? But the state's Attorney-General, Kaya Ma, who himself identifies as Aboriginal, or did, was today still not getting the message.
The turnout that occurred at our First Nations voice elections was in line with the numbers that voted when we had ADSIC votes back in the 1990s, and is either in line or slightly higher than the first time other Aboriginal representative bodies have been set up.
Now, Ma still isn't getting the message. That record going back that long suggests that Aborigines clearly do not want bodies like this. Not that, if the vast majority don't bother to vote for them. It's the same with the First Peoples Assembly in Victoria last year. Even in its second election, 90% of Aborigines still didn't bother voting, letting motivated radicals take over instead to talk about things like a treaty, nothing grassroots, and other separatist issues, of course, which just divide us. And in another respect, South Australia is again a warning to the rest of us about all this, especially people in Victoria and New South Wales, where this race politics has really played the hardest, where so many people now identify as Aboriginal when most or even all of their ancestors are as white as Melbourne University's Professor Bruce Pascoe, who is the white guy on the right of this picture. Now, that Kaya Ma that you just heard, South Australia's Attorney-General, for all I know, Ma could have voted in this election for South Australia's voice as well, because he's identified as Aboriginal too, through his mother.
And it's only later in her life that my mum's become reacquainted and more involved with her heritage. It's not something that played an active role in my growing up, and I didn't suffer the discrimination and disadvantage that many Aboriginal people suffer growing up in Australia. But it's something that I'm very proud of, is part of my heritage.
Except, of course, as I've reported here last year, genealogists working with the website darkemuexposed.org found that Ma has not one Aboriginal ancestor in the records they've checked. What's more, his late mother changed her story. First, she claimed her Aboriginal ancestors were from Western Victoria, then she said they were from Tasmania. Someone unrecorded, she claimed. And now Ma refuses to discuss, even on the ABC, just who his Aboriginal ancestors are, or if he has any at all.
But if you and the Premier have brought your, for want of a better word, ancestry into the public arena, doesn't it follow that you should be open to questions about that, as unpleasant as this is?
And no, it's not something I brought into the public arena, David. It's others have brought it in, and if it's not a path that I'm going to go down, and if it's a path that commentators want to go down with people of the Jewish community, the Vietnamese community, they're welcome to, but it's not something I'm going to commentate on.
Listen, when we have even politicians like Ma, or federal Labor MP Gordon Reid, for instance, who claim to be Aboriginal despite genealogical records that appear to suggest they are not at all, and then they refuse to prove it, when they respond to my sorts of questions with just rhetoric and not records, then hasn't this race politics become too silly for words?
I am Aboriginal, my family is Aboriginal, and we are proud.
Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I mean, who cares? But listen, when anyone can claim to be Aboriginal and serve as an Aborigine in our real parliaments, why insist that the difference between the races is so great that we actually need a separate kind of parliament just for Aborigines? Why divide ourselves politically by race? I mean, how primitive is that? No wonder so many Aborigines want no part of it.